me, or like, good job.
All right, Jax, whenever you're ready, brother.
Hey, buddy.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh,
Good job.
Got
I missed
faster.
that. I missed that. Good job,
I got
Jax.
so much
That's
faster.
because it was at 9 and he goes to bed at 8:30.
What's that?
That's because it was at 9 and he goes to bed at 8:30. So that's why he couldn't do it.
Man, we could have made it 8:30. I didn't know all that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, here we are. Last meeting. We're going to finish the Constitution tonight. I may have one more meeting next week just on a recap of the Constitution. We'll just go over everything that we've talked about real quick. It just seems like it would be a good ending. But this is it. We're going to get through the 27th Amendment. A little bittersweet for me. You know, it's taken a lot of time. It's taken a lot of time away from things, family things. But man, I wouldn't change anything. And you guys stuck with me here for over a year, going over every single one of these. And you remember the point of this thing was never to make you guys constitutional scholars. The point of this thing was to give you the knowledge to be able to have conversations, to give you the knowledge to go back to the Constitution when you knew something was wrong and you know where to look it up. And I think we've accomplished that. I know, at least for me, every week I learned something. I learned something new every single week researching this stuff. So I really appreciate you guys sticking it out for the year. It means a lot to me. And I don't think we're done. I mean, we'll figure out where we're going to go from here. Probably take a little break, but we'll figure out where we're going to go, what we want to do. Danielle's got some ideas, maybe where other people kind of pick up the reins here and lead the discussion on different topics. And I kind of like that. It would pull a lot of the heat off of me. But yeah, anybody got anything before we move on here to the 24th?
Yeah, I see how it is, Jim. You get all popular with your podcast and now you want to leave us.
I'm not going to leave you guys. Not going to leave you guys.
I'm just
the
kidding.
podcast, really, you know what? This takes more time than the podcast does for me, to be honest with you. I mean, the podcast, I just show up and talk for an hour. We send it off. They do all the work. Me, but I just come in there. I don't have notes. I don't have anything. So.
Well, this was just so timely that we started this when we did. It all fell into place and I really enjoyed this and I'm going to miss it.
It did. It really, I mean, I don't know if we could have picked up a better time for this, right? Nobody saw the election going the way it was going. Yeah, it was a good time.
Not only was it timely when we started it, but as we were going over certain amendments, they applied to everyday life, what was happening around us.
Right. No, they
Yep.
did. And yeah, I mean, I hope you guys learned something from this. And I think you did, or you wouldn't have kept coming back. So just know that I really appreciate it. You guys really helped me out here to see my vision of what I wanted this to be. And when we started this, like I said, I was hoping for 5 or 6. I mean, we got almost 600 or so in the group. And I always said that if I could get 20 of y'all, 30 of y'all just to get through to the end, I would be happy. So, all right, enough sappy stuff. So I guess we'll get going with the 24th, 26th, and 27th, actually the 24th through the 27th. These are all pretty easy and we're going to get through them pretty quick. There's not a whole lot of substance to them and there's really not a whole lot of even case law to talk about. So we'll start with the 24th Amendment. And what it says is the right of citizens of the United States to vote in any primary or other election for president or vice president, for electors for president or vice president, or for senator or representative in Congress shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state by reason of failure to pay any poll tax or other tax. Section 2 of that is the Congress shall have the power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. So basically, all this is saying in a nutshell is that they cannot charge you a tax to vote. this is the final amendment to remove roadblocks to voting, which largely targeted blacks, right? 14, 15, and 16, or 13, 14, and 15, I guess. Ending slavery, stopping you from voting due to race. And this was the other one. This is how they would stop the blacks. They would disenfranchise the blacks from voting, is by charging them money. They were the poorest of the country, of the community. So by charging them money, they were able to keep a lot of them out of the polls. Congress introduced legislation to eliminate poll taxes in every session beginning in 1939, but it failed every time. In 1964, there were 5 states that still had poll taxes. They were Alabama, Arkansas, shockingly, Mississippi's on that list, Texas, and Virginia. And I say shockingly because if you remember, Mississippi's always the last one to do everything, right? They were the last ones to get rid of slavery. They were the last ones to, what was the other one they were the last ones to do? I think it was on voting on account of race. So Mississippi.
Ratify women's rights to vote.
Oh, were they the last ones on that too?
Yes, sir.
Yep. So there you go. Mississippi is always late to the game. You think they would learn, but apparently not. There have been numerous attempts recently to apply the 24th Amendment to other scenarios, all of which have failed in the courts. Arguments like the 24th Amendment forbids felons getting the right back contingent on paying back child support, payment of past fines that are due, or having a fee due to reinstate voting rights. The Supreme Court has struck all those down, saying those do not equal a poll tax. So it just kind of sticks as it was introduced and as it was ratified. Nor does it voter ID law, nor does it affect voter ID laws. And that's Gonzales, Arizona, and that's 2010. So any voter ID law, as long as you're not having to pay a poll tax, anybody who attacks things like voter ID laws under the 24th Amendment is probably barking up the wrong tree. There's other avenues, equal protection, things like that they could do. Supreme Court has ruled time and time again that none of that violates the 24th. Questions on 24th? Pretty easy. Just don't have to pay money to vote. Dan, is this product placement? Is Dan even here? Dan left. Came in here to pitch the pod, and then he hit the road.
Calm down, Tiger.
25th Amendment. So we're going to get pretty in depth in the 25th Amendment right now. This one's probably going to take the longest amount of time. Just kidding. We already did this. If you want to know about the 25th Amendment, you can go to YouTube. I forgot we already did it until somebody reminded me, or we probably would have gone through it all again. So that's the 25th Amendment. Does anybody have questions about that? In a nutshell, 25th Amendment, which is probably going to come into play here before too long. If you listen to our podcast with Jeff, the conspiracy theorist, 25th Amendment is probably going to get invoked here eventually. And that is where they strip the president of all of his powers. But it deals with order of succession. Should
He's
the
a
president-
conspiracy. He's a conspiracy analyst. Damn it.
Damn it. See, now you threw me off, squirrel. Deals with order of succession should the president or vice president become incapacitated, or the president become incapacitated. And it also deals with stripping the president of his powers should his mental faculties, or maybe another reason like surgery, things like that, where he's unable to carry out his duties. Doesn't remove him from office, simply takes his powers, delegates them down, or relegates them down, I guess, to the vice president, who remains vice president, but is in control of the country until the president petitions to have those back and gets them back. Or Congress says no, and the president will always resign before that happens. So anyway, that's the 25th. I already talked about that. 26th Amendment, the right of the citizens of the United States who are 18 years of age or older to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of age. The Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. So what this one's doing, this is pretty plain English. And it seems like obviously the later we get on, the easier they are to understand, right? These things that weren't written back in the 1700s. Just gives you the right to vote if you are 18 years old. United States and any state cannot abridge that. Can't deny you the right to vote as long as you are 18. Now, that doesn't stop the states from telling you can't run for office until you're 21, which was one of the things that were brought up and struck down. But you certainly have the right to vote. So this was adopted in 1971. And what was going on in 71? Come on, big one.
Vietnam War.
Vietnam War. Now that is always what you hear about the 26th Amendment, is that, you know, it was because people were protesting the Vietnam War and they were saying, hey, look, man, if we can go fight for this country at 18 years old, if we can go fight and die for this country, we ought to be allowed to vote. And it's not quite true. That's a romantic story about how the 26th came to be, but it's not quite true. The truth on the matter is that in 1970, Congress amended the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and lowered the voting age in federal, state, and local elections. The Supreme Court ruled against them, saying, look, you do not have the right to control the state and local elections, which is why that they came up with the 26 passed. Now it became part of the Constitution, and now they can control state and local elections as far as the age goes. So that's,
but it was still driven by this. It was still all driven by the Vietnam War. Even in 1970, we were in the middle of it.
Well, it was, but the constitutional amendment wasn't. You're right. When they
Right.
went to amend the Voting Rights Act, yes, absolutely it was. But the amendment came about because the Supreme Court said they didn't have the right to do it.
Right.
So you're right. I mean, it was driven by it, but that is not how the 26 came to be. Had the Supreme Court not gotten involved, we wouldn't even have a 26th Amendment here. The Constitution would probably stop at 26 if they had just allowed it to stand. But it was not. Man, we are flying through this thing. It is 8:16. We're going to be done by 8:30.
Jim, I thought you were gonna want to touch on like how divided they were about this violating states' rights and how like the Supreme Court couldn't agree. Like it was, to me, something that I still don't understand how it was not deemed unconstitutional.
What wasn't? The entire?
For the federal government to say we're making the laws on voting when the Constitution or the 14th said that it was like the states' rights to make voting laws.
Well, that's why
that's what
they said. That's what they said when they amended. All they did was try to legislate it. And that's when the Supreme Court came in and said, you can't do that. You don't have rights over the states. You don't have right over local elections. You can't just make a law. You can't amend a law and upend the Constitution. And then that is when they proposed the 26th Amendment and got it through pretty quickly. So,
but it was before that each state made their own 21 and up rules, and then the federal government said, nope, we're making the decision for you. And like,
you mean with the 26th Amendment?
Yeah, so like it was the states' rights to make that decision.
But you got to remember, I mean, they went about it the right way. They went about it through Article 5. Congress passed it and it went to the states and it got ratified by the states. So, and that's the whole purpose behind the amendment process, right? Is for it to change the Constitution, add to the Constitution. So whatever the Constitution said concerning that, once 3/4 of the states ratify this and say, yeah, we're behind this, we want to change this, then there is no violation. The violation comes when they just try to amend the Voting Rights Act of 1965. That's the violation. There's no violation once Congress does not make doesn't change the Constitution, right? They can pass an amendment, but the states have to ratify it. And if the states aren't behind it, then it's not in there. And had the states not ratified it, then they wouldn't have been able to change the state law for voting age. That would have been it. But when the state said, yeah, we want this, There's just not, I mean, that's the way the process is supposed to work.
Okay.
So does that make sense?
Yeah, I was struggling with understanding it, the constitutionality of it. Like I'm all about states' rights too, so it didn't make sense to me. But I guess this is like a convention of state where if enough states come together, then
Right.
it's
I mean, you got, right, 3/4 of the state said, yeah, we want it. Right. There's a
Okay.
quarter that might say that we don't want it, but the way the Constitution's written, Article 5, if we're going to follow the Constitution, 3/4 of the state say we want it. That's it. The other
Okay.
quarter just have to live with it. You know, like I said, you're 100% right, Bill. When they try to just change the Voting Rights Act, then it's unconstitutional. You can't legislate. You can't change the Constitution by legislation. So again, had they not passed the 26, had they not ratified the 26, then we would have been stuck. They can certainly change federal election law. They can say, hey, look, you got to be 18 to vote in federal elections, but they wouldn't have been able to change state and local.
right. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Does everybody agree with that, or does anybody else have something? Call me out. It's a discussion.
I
Nobody?
agree with it.
All right, fair enough. Well, Jeff agrees, because I know Jeff will call me out on my bullshit. So if Jeff agrees with it, then I'm probably okay. All right, so we'll move on to the 27th. 27th is kind of interesting. I actually love the 27th. So, oh, got my slides out of order here, so bear with me. No law varying the compensation for the services of senators or representatives shall take effect until an election of representatives shall have intervened. This was introduced by James Madison and passed by Congress in 1789. Ratified by the states in 1992. And that is not a typo. It was introduced and passed by Congress in 1789, did not get ratified until 1992, almost 200 years later. So at the Constitution Convention, there was a large debate on whether or not the states or the federal government would compensate Congress under Article 1, Section 6, which says the senators and representatives shall receive compensation for their services to be ascertained by law and paid out of the treasury of the United States. So if you're thinking like an anti-federalist now, do you see the problem with that? I'm sure Jeff, somebody will probably see the problem with this, yeah? That's it. Article 1, Section 6. That's all it said. Senators and representatives shall receive a compensation for their services to be ascertained by law and paid out of the treasury of the United States.
Yeah, it makes them employees of the federal government, not looking out for their states that they were elected by. They should be paid by their state.
And who says what the compensation is?
But why?
Yeah.
So who makes the law? We all know who makes the law, right?
Congress.
Congress. So what this is saying is that basically senators and representatives, so it's saying Congress shall receive compensation for their services to be decided by Congress and paid out of the federal money.
Giving themselves raises.
Right. So Congress gets to decide how much money they're going to get, right? Congress.
Somebody needs to mute.
Yeah. Renee, can you do that? Because I can't see. I'm on my, I'm on Prezi. So Congress gets to
I'm
decide
working.
how much Congress is worth, right? If Congress decides that they need a little more money, boom, we can pass a law and we can raise our wages. And there's nothing saying they can't raise their wages more than once a year. They can raise their wages 12 times a year, every month if they wanted to do it. So the anti-federalists, they become worried that Congress should be in charge of, or should not be in charge of deciding how much they make, since there would be no checks on their ability to enrich themselves. In 1982, an undergraduate term paper raised the issue. And for 10 years, a grassroots movement grew until it was finally ratified, with Michigan being the 38th state to ratify. So for 200 years, so 1789, this thing was introduced with the original Bill of Rights. It was passed by Congress, but the states, they only had 6 states, I think, at that time, which was did not amount to 3/4, and it just sat dormant. Now, if you look at this, No law varying the compensation for the services of senators and representatives shall take effect until an election of representatives shall have intervened. That's it. If you remember, in a whole lot of these, it says if, section 2 is always, or at the end of this would say that if it is not ratified within 7 years, then it becomes moot, right? It becomes, it just dies. And this one didn't say it, which is why it was allowed to just languish for 200 years until finally in 1992, everybody got together and said, yeah, you know what, this is kind of screwed up. And they went ahead and ratified it. So what it says now is that any raise that they do, any raise they give themselves will not take effect until the next election cycle, until the next Congress is seated. And the thinking behind that is, in 1789 at least, was that they're going to be a little more stingy with their money. They're not going to be so quick to give raises when it may not affect them. But then again, in 1789, they never saw somebody being in Congress for 40 years, right? They expected you to do your time in Congress and then go back and tend to your fields. So I wonder how they would have written it now, or in 1789, knowing what we know now about Congress. For the majority, because all we do is vote in the same people, all we do is vote in incumbents. So for the majority of them, they know that if they pass a congressional raise this year, that in 2022 or 2023, they're going to get their raise.
Had they known what we know now, even half of what we know now, they would have put term limits in when they wrote the Constitution.
Oh, if they knew then what we know now, there would have been more shooting.
And now on to the next and final amendment, term limits. Oh, wait, that's not in there yet.
Not yet. It'll be there. We'll get it. We'll get it eventually.
Yeah, definitely needed.
Man, that was it. That was the 27th. I thought I had one more bullet point there, but I guess I don't. So the very first, let me just read this one out of the Heritage. The very first challenge to this after it was ratified. I'll just read the whole paragraph. Probably easier than me trying to read it than explain it. So the first challenge, and this is from the Heritage Guide to the Constitution. The first challenge arising under the amendment was brought by Representative John Boehner, of all people, who claimed that the automatic cost of living adjustments provided to Congress under the Ethics Reform Act of 1989 amounted to an increase in compensation without an intervening election. Assuming that the 27th Amendment applied to the laws adopted to it before it was ratified, the Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia rejected the claim, noting that the COLA provision of the Ethics Reform Act of 1989 is constitutional because it did not cause any adjustment to congressional compensation until after the election of 1990 and the seating of the new Congress. That's Boehner versus Anderson, DC Circuit, 1994. So they shot it down there, and I guess that's where it stopped. It's probably a valid, I understand cost of living. Trust me. I mean, with my raises and we want cost of living. Everybody wants cost of living because costs constantly go up, right? I mean, if you look at prices in 1789, prices for, a potato in 1789 compared to a potato now, it's probably pretty substantial. But does a cost of living increase amount to a raise? Does it change the wages of Congress? And I think the answer is yes. And I don't know why that's never been taken higher. It seems to me that COLA should not apply to congressional pay. But if they want to change that, then they need to go through the system and they need to vote it in. I would assume that they would probably just do it anyway, but this is automatic for them. So it's kind of in violation, I think, of the 27th that requires an intervening, requires it to be during the next Congress. So I thought that one was
well, but if you think about it, the cost of living adjustments always take effect the first of the year. And there's always somebody new coming in Congress every year.
Well-
It's either a senator or a congressperson.
Yeah, but that's not, I mean, what, I should probably.
Well,
know
I'm
this.
just saying, I
What
would think that
Congress,
that's how
what
they're
Congress
getting
are we on
around it.
right now? Does anybody know the number?
It's like 118 or something.
Uh, Probably, I should probably know that. Okay, so let's just say for the sake of argument, it's the 118th Congress. It doesn't matter who's coming in, who's going out. What matters is when the 119th Congress is seated. So they're not going to get their raises that they vote for until the 119th Congress is seated. So it doesn't matter. I mean, I understand, I think what you're saying, but it doesn't matter how many, who's coming in, who's going out. It matters on what Congress is seated. And
It's
listen,
the
it's all-
117th Congress
All right, pretty
convened
close.
January 3rd of this year, and it will conclude January 3rd of 2023.
Okay. Perfect.
So it's 2 years. Yep.
So I don't know, man. $176,000. Do they need a cost of living increase each year? I mean, that's probably a whole nother discussion. I don't think they do $176,000 worth of work anyway, but I mean, they could probably cut that in half. Probably
They got to
more.
pay off their student loans.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, that's half true. Well, and AOC needs a nice apartment. She said she didn't have enough money to afford an apartment. She wanted a raise before she even got her first check. So that's it. 8:30. 27th Amendment ends it, man. That is the Constitution of the United States of America. You
Wait,
guys.
I got questions.
Oh, good. Okay, everybody have a good night.
27th.
Take care. It's good seeing you guys.
Yeah. I got my questions on the
Bless
27th.
America.
Welcome to Pod Bless America. I'm Jim. All right, go ahead.
I'm Dan.
Okay,
You're a little late there, Dan. You missed the
Yeah,
boat.
Dan. Son of a.
my question on the 27th is, and I could be remembering wrong, but like, I thought that the original First Amendment was congressional size of Madison's original 17 amendments, and the second was congressional pay change. And if he listed it as the second, then it must have been pretty damn important. And then how on earth did it end up just like not even being addressed at all until this college kid in 1982? Because it was originally.
Well, I know that as I was reading it, here was the problem with the states ratifying it. The states that were ratifying it were worried that if they ratified the 27th Amendment as it was written in 1789, that their state legislatures would be next. So I think it was a little self-serving on their part that, hey, look, man, if we pass this thing and we limit congressional. Oh, that's true. I know that was one of the big sticking points for the states, which is why they ran into trouble with ratification. So I do remember reading that just tonight while I was researching all this, or while I was getting ready for this. So that's that. You said questions, though. That was one. You have another one? What's up, Blue? All right. Anybody else?
Every good season of a show ends with a cliffhanger. Got anything, Jim?
Well, I don't know. I've got a couple ideas floating around, and I kind of like Daniela's idea, where you guys we can all kind of figure out what we want to do, and somebody can pick up the reins. Daniela was talking about possibly, and we'll talk about this. Maybe we can all meet one day and we can just spitball what we want to do next. She was talking about the presidents, so we understand our founders, not just the presidents, but the founders, I guess, right, Daniela? What a great idea. And everybody can just kind of take a turn, right? Maybe I'll pick up the first one, and then somebody else picks up one. And then the next week we show up and maybe Chris is talking about his founder, and then Bill could talk about his founder. And it would kind of take some of the heat off of me. but we can
I
keep this
think
thing going.
that's a really cool idea, actually, because
Yeah.
Yeah. I
And you
like
know
that.
what? And
a lot of people
honestly,
have like their favorites, like
right. And I would love to learn about the founders a little more in depth, who they
and
really
learn
were.
it from other people too, like other
Yeah.
people's point of view.
And you're going to see, based on who's doing it, what was important to that person about this founder. It's not just
Right.
my opinion on what was important.
Why
So-
why do we plan to reconvene on the 21st? So in 2 weeks, and kind of come up with our plan, and then we'll start it after the new year.
I think we should have a planning meeting to plan at Cookie's tent.
Rick
It could
Gorski
be,
is-
it could be a,
Rick Gorski is 100% pure government right here. He wants to have a
Yep.
planning meeting to plan the planning commission so that we can
Yes.
plan. Yeah.
a plan. No, I'm
Perfect.
thinking that the 21st would be a nice holiday gathering for us all on
Yeah.
celebrate and
Okay.
kind
All
of.
right. So why don't we do this? So are you saying take next week off?
I think so.
Okay, we'll take next week off. 21st, we'll get together. I would like to hit just a review real quick of the
If you-
Constitution.
I was gonna say, if you want to review next week, but I'm just saying if people have an idea of who they'd want to study for their founder, that will give them a couple weeks to start thinking about that. And
We
then,
should start with the founder of the Everyday Constitution.
I don't need anybody talking about my history. God damn.
Nicely done.
Hey, Dan, that's a great idea.
I love that picture.
Dude, you need to put that on the podcast website. Make a t-shirt. That'd be a great t-shirt.
Are we still recording?
Yep.
Yes, we are.
Well, I've shown you guys this before, but Bruce Bishop, it's always good to have friends who are good at Photoshop, made this for me.
Oh,
Nice.
That's me. So yeah, that's great.
awesome.
Actually, you know what? I'm going to take this to the studio. I'm going to hang it up.
Holly raised her hand.
Holly Swank, go ahead.
How about learning the ins and outs of our local governments?
Yeah, but everybody lives in different cities.
Well, yeah, but like a lot of people don't know that, what the local government has an effect on your life.
That would probably be more like a pissing session instead of saying, pros and cons of what our part of North Ridgeville is doing compared to where somewhere else lives. Like we collect our trash on Tuesdays. Oh yeah, well we collect.
Yeah, no shit, right? It would get down to bulk. Oh, I get bulk every day. You know what? Son of a bitch, North Ridgeville, man. They only have bulk once a week. That's what it, yeah, exactly.
Well, we pick it up, damn it.
Once a month.
I do like the
Everybody
idea.
in here probably has Republican mayors, right?
No, I mean, down from the beginning of local government up to who your congressmen are, who your senators are, stuff like that.
The problem is the local governments can be so wildly different, right? Because they're an entity unto themselves. I mean, I guess you would have to talk about each state's constitution.
Yeah,
Now,
we do have
one-
50 states. I mean, that makes sense.
One
It would be
thing that
tough.
one thing that I do think would, if you wanted to go to that level, is the two different kinds of government where you have commission or you have strong mayors. Because I've lived in cities.
Oh,
with
right,
both,
right. Yep. Where you
and
have
they are
city
completely
managers,
different the way they govern.
right? That like the city manager versus a mayor.
Yep.
Yep, yep.
You know
You know what?
another
I'm
thing,
glad. I'll
too.
tell you what. I'm glad we're still recording this because now it's going to be on YouTube. Anybody who may watch this at least knows, they'll hear us talking about stuff. So don't stop the recording. When we finally decide what we're going to do. I mean, I'd love to have more people get on here. I
Does
personally,
anybody here? Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I personally love Daniela's idea with the founders. I do. I've got a love affair with the founders, with all of them. And I love hearing stories about them and how they grew up and how they ended up where they were and how this became important to them. I think that's a great way to go.
I think a good idea though, maybe to throw out there would be, because we're so high on states' rights, is how the state government works, at least. Because a lot of them, pretty similar way of how they handle things, starting with the governor, lieutenant governor, AG, stuff like that. I mean, we're big on state rights. Well, we should probably have a pretty good idea.
Yeah, but
on
I
how our
guess
state
my
government works.
thing with that would be that, I mean, when you're talking about state rights, it doesn't matter how the state's being run. What it matters is the federal government's not getting involved in that state, right? The states can run however they want to run. But when the federal government comes in and tries to get involved in that, when they come in and try to control education, when they come in and try to control healthcare, when they come in and try to control welfare, that's where the states' right issue comes. I don't
So
care
how
you
does
run
that
your
work
state.
though? How do they enforce those powers? What powers do the state have when it comes to kicking the federal government out? How far can
Well, we all
federal
know how they
government go
enforce
when
it.
it comes to state rights?
We all know how they enforce it, right? They enforce it through highway funds, through education funds. They extort you. They make it so that you can't afford to stand against them. And we've allowed them to get to that point, but that's how they do it, right? You can come in and
Yeah.
say, look, we're not teaching this crap in our schools. The federal government mandates you have to teach whatever you have to teach. And you say, well, we're not going to do that in Ohio. They're going to say, okay, then we're not going to give you any education funds.
You know what's really funny though? Where do they get that money?
Well, they get it from us.
From us, exactly.
Right.
Why do
We
we
allow
let them
this-
have that money? Exactly.
Again, this is what I've always
Those are our
said.
congressmen.
This
They'll
is what
put
I've
you in
always said,
jail.
right? What I've always said is we allow them to get away with it. We continually allow them to get away with it. Listen, when the states are going to stand up and actually tell the federal government, no, it's going to cost you more money. You have to know that. It's going to cost you more money because the first thing they're going to do is stop funding. You have to be willing to pay your share in your state to keep your state running. And it's going to cost, but you're going to break away from the federal government. So,
I mean, it costs either way. People have to understand what the benefit is to the cost, right? Either you have autonomy as a state or you are controlled by the federal government.
right, 100%. And that's what I was saying before. I don't remember where I said it. I don't remember if I said it on the podcast or I said it here, but we're no longer the United States of America. We're the United State of America, right? The federal government has decided what's good for all of us. I wish they would have called it the United Several States of America because we're not anymore. It is just one state. It is a federally run state now where we are all beholden to the federal government and their whims and whatever they want to do. And it was never supposed to be like that, but we allowed it to get out of control. And I
And that's
still
what
put
made
my
it so
finger on the
unique, man.
17th Amendment. I still put my finger on the 17th Amendment is where we got screwed up. As
Yeah,
soon as
So
we
that's always
stopped,
what made it so unique too, because how many countries have as many states as we do, and those states having as much power as they
Sure.
allegedly have.
sure.
I think that's why we've been so successful so quickly.
As soon as
But,
we
yeah,
gave up
you're
our
right, it's turned
senators,
into
as soon as we
salary.
gave up letting the states send their senators in there and we let the people elect the senators, we lost the federal government. The federal government just exploded. I mean, there was nobody there to stand up for the states. And
I agree.
I'll fight that until the end. I think that is where we went downhill. And I would love to see the 17th Amendment repealed. I've said it before, I have no idea what that mechanism looks like or how you would do it, but I would love to see the state get back to sending their own senators who aren't beholden to the people. They're simply beholden to the states. Where if a law comes down and the senators can stand there and they can say, hey, look, we understand, we're citizens, we love that law, but you're infringing on our state sovereignty and we're going to say no on this, right? There's nobody there to do that now. Everybody's beholden to the people now. So,
Except the
Could you
Senate.
just, you could rescind the 17th the same way you did prohibition. The 17th Amendment.
sure,
is
you
hereby
can.
rescinded.
You can, but I'm saying I don't know what the mechanism is once you do that. I mean, do we just automatically go right back to the way the Constitution was? We just have the legislature sending them, and then what happens in Congress? I mean, I don't know. I haven't looked into it enough. I mean, you have to figure all that out, but I'm not opposed to it, man. I'm not opposed to it. Let that, you know what, you say term limits, but really, in my mind, let the 28th Amendment be the repeal for the 17th. I'd be happy with that. There's just nobody there. And I understand that the argument for the 17th was that it was being, that there were corrupt states out there, right? That people were able to buy senators. Well, it's like anything else. I mean, when you have the minority acting up, you don't punish the majority. You don't pass a sweeping amendment telling Montana now, who's not having these problems, that they can't send their own senators in because, you know, Delaware is sending corrupt senators. You deal with Delaware.
Yeah, but now
What-
you have lobbyists buying off senators.
What corrupt senator would you be speaking of from Delaware? Would it be?
Yeah, we gotta talk about
Trust
Delaware.
me,
like
man,
that, too.
Delaware was that wasn't by that was by design. That was by design. I'm glad somebody caught that. Yeah, that was definitely by design. But yeah, I mean, that's the more I read about the 17th Amendment, I mean, that's the one I'm getting passionate on. That's where we lost it, man. If you look at how the federal government exploded, and you look at when the 17th Amendment was ratified, it's hand in hand. As soon as there was nobody there to represent the states, the federal government just went crazy.
I blame it on the fact the Constitution provided the Department of Education and Labor, and oh wait, it doesn't.
No, it does. Yeah, right here. It says that the federal government is allowed to be involved in education. Hold on, it's you guys talk amongst yourselves. I'll find it.
Yeah, you'll be looking for a while.
Well,
No, I
then
like
we'll
the
let-
idea of the founders. I like the idea of talking about the founders.
All right, then I say that's where we go, and we'll like Renee said, on the 21st, we'll meet back. If you guys want a week off, we could take a week off. Everybody just, you know, getting ready for the holidays, whatever.
You guys are gonna laugh. If you have little kids or younger kids and they've been listening to Jackson, I learned a tremendous amount of Jackson from listening to that darn screenplay and even the songs. Right? Was it Jackson? Yeah, it was Jackson.
What are you talking about?
You mean
You guys
Hamilton?
hear the new
Hamilton.
Hamilton. Yeah.
Hamilton
Everything
Jackson,
that
whatever, one of them old white guys.
all those white guys look the same. They got the same haircut. But Hamilton, wow, that was an amazing learning about that, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't listen to it. I got turned off by their politics they were doing on stage.
Now, when you say founders, that doesn't mean just presidents, right? That means
No.
people-
And I think originally we were talking about Daniela. What are you holding up? Is she
You
holding-
held up your picture of you as the general, and I was just putting the camera on Blues.
Oh,
That's
you know what?
Yeah.
I have. Here we go. So go ahead and there it is. All right, nice.
Isn't that cute?
Nice.
BRT mascot, General Blue.
Right on. Yeah, no, I think when we originally started talking about it was presidents, but I like the idea of founders. All of them. I mean, there's a lot of founders in there that were never presidents. And we can talk about it. We can even go pivotal figures in America being developed. From the Revolutionary War, maybe they didn't sign on with the Constitution, but
Art
you know,
Modell.
had a lot to do with this country becoming this country. I don't know. We could talk about it on the 21st. I hate to see this thing end. I do. But this is what it was supposed to be, right? I mean, I got 22 of y'all here now that hopefully can go out and talk to your kids about the Constitution now. They can sit down and they're not just getting information about this country and how this country was founded from liberal schools that are starting to put out so much revisionist history. You're going to be able to sit down and say, look, man, this is what made this country great. Let's talk about this. And that was why we started this thing. Renee, if you remember the initial conversation, parents just didn't have the knowledge. We don't even have the knowledge to sit down with our kids around the kitchen table to talk about the Constitution, to talk about things that are happening and how they're wrong and how they're destroying this country. So I think we did that. I feel good.
I think so too.
Yeah,
I think it's been good.
and we stuck with it, man, for a year. We didn't just end this thing. I'll tell you what, if I was ever going to end it, it was in Article 1. God dang, did that drag on forever. God,
the
Article
article
One
that we
lasted
never
for like
wanted to end.
12 weeks. It seemed like every week I'd show up and I'm like, God, are we still on Article One?
And see, I missed that because I
Oh.
didn't get invited to the group until Article 2.
Article One, man, Article One, Section 8 just went on forever. But you know what? That was probably the most important part of the Constitution to me. Article One, Section 8 is what Congress is allowed to do. It spells it all out. And remember, if it's not in the Constitution, they're not allowed to do it. So, you know, when you start looking at things Congress is doing, then you're like, can they do this? Then you know, just go back to Article One, Section 8. It'll tell you if they're allowed to do it. When you see that the president is putting a vaccine mandate over the entire United States over private businesses, you know enough now to go to Article 2 and read it. You know what? I'm going to go to Article 2 and see if the president's allowed to do this. Well, I mean, spoiler alert, he's not. So, you know, hopefully you guys at least, hopefully you got well-worn constitutions. Now, hopefully those of you that got the rugged constitution, the pages are all dog-eared and, you know, the binding is broken now. Yeah, Jeff Edmonds comes here. Where have you been through the entire thing? See, you should have been here. We're going to need you, Jeff, to go back YouTube every single episode so that on the 21st, then we could talk about it.
I am. Ron Barlow pointed me out to this just this week. So,
oh man, you got in right at the last.
We were sitting down having a bourbon.
All
Ron
right.
is tired.
Well, now wait a minute. Where's Ron Barlow been? He's
Exactly.
sending people here, but he's not here.
I don't know, but he told me to make sure to check this out. So I came in, and when I saw the video coming up, I was like, oh, I got to check that out. So now I'm definitely going to have to go back and see what all the rest of this is about.
Well, and what the videos are, it goes through from the preamble until tonight. So, I mean, I think they're all important, but you can pick and choose, right? If you were going to pick and choose anything, Article 1's probably, I think Article 1's pretty important. That's where it spells out what Congress can do. Article 1, Section 8. And I don't even think we got through Section 8. That was several weeks, wasn't it?
It was the song that never ended.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I was to say, I would say to bear with us the earlier recordings and videos were not as well done as we've learned as we've gone. So
yeah, sure.
And Jim did a great job picking up Prezi and using that as a presenter tool. So we were a little rough at the start, but it's turned out to be really great. And I hope that people kind of stick with it, and as they start to watch the older videos and realize they do get better. They do get better.
Sure. And you know, and things with the founders too is we're always going to be able to go back to the Constitution. We're going to continue to talk about the Constitution because every founder had what was important to them, right? So we're going to be able to talk about, look, you know, that Thomas Jefferson was big on this. We're going to be able to talk about, you know, the founders that were anti-federalists and the founders that were federalists and what they believed. And maybe we'll have to go back to, you know, read some of the Federalist Papers. I think the founders is going to be fantastic. Now, one of the things we talked about, I think it was in a post discussion, which Jeff, just so you know, here's our disclaimer. After this, she'll post a link to the post discussion. The post discussion is not as formal as this. That's where we all start drinking bourbon. And sometimes it gets off the hook a little bit, right? We could talk about anything we want to talk. There you go. That's where we talk about anything we want to talk about. Local politics, federal politics, whatever. Daniela's dog. I mean, we talk about whatever the hell we want to talk about there. But I think one of the things I talked about in the post, and if we're going to talk about the founders, I love this book. I bought this book. I've already read it fully once, and I'll open it up when I have a second just to read. It's by Stephen Robb, and it's called The Founder's Speech to a Nation in Crisis. And what it is a book full of quotes from the founders, right? So right here is one from James. There's one from James Madison, and what they've done is all these into one continuous speech for a nation in crisis. And even though they're quotes from different people, it flows like it was written as one speech.
Well, why don't you post that to the Facebook page so we know?
I
I
agree.
can. I can.
The name
Yeah.
of the book.
And it's what it is, the founder's speech to a nation in crisis, what the founders would say to America today. And I mean, it's really any, what the heck? So we lost Jeff. Jeff's like, you know what, this sucks. Oh no, Jeff's here.
No, he's there.
We lost somebody. I don't know. So it reordered. Who did?
Dan,
Oh, I think he's working all night though. Yeah, this is his first night shift. But yeah, you open it up and any quote is pretty amazing, really. I mean, I'll just open it up right here. I don't even know what it's going to say. So we're talking about the Constitution here. This is the Constitution chapter. Alexander Hamilton, the origin of all civil government justly established must be a voluntary compact between the rulers and the ruled, and must be liable to such limitations as are necessary for the security, the absolute rights of the people. I mean, every single quote in here is amazing. So it's broken up into different, I guess, chapters. First one being liberty, then there's conscience,
Topics.
there's knowledge, there's speech, there's constitution, tyranny, propriety, law, a call to action. It ends with the call to action. Yeah, it's a fantastic book, but I can post it. For
Great.
sure.
should end with wussification.
Well, I think
I
that's
don't know
the
what
call
they
to
would
action.
say about that.
I think that's the call to action. Actually, I love the whole tyranny section. The tyranny section is amazing. Every quote in here just gets you so mad that you're ready to march.
Hey, if I could just jump in as we're wrapping this up and say a huge thank you to Renee for being the facilitator, the organizer, keeping us all in line, keeping us all on track. Renee, you rock.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Without Renee, man, I would have been all over the place and swearing like a God. Renee's the one that kept me from swearing so much.
I know.
I have heard the podcast.
Huh?
I have heard the podcasts.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I have a shirt that says freedom is my second favorite F word. So, and that's true.
But thank you, Renee.
Well, thanks for the recognition. I am just the man behind the curtain. That's what I like to be.
No, you kept it going, man, for sure.
You
I mean,
did.
you were the one that showed up here every week, got the meeting started. You were the one watching the hands go up. You were the one watching the comments. You were the one putting all the links in. So all I did was come here and talk.
Good job,
You did-
Renee.
You did a lot more though. I want to say Jim has done a great job researching and putting together some very thoughtful slides that did make us think and did initiate a lot of good discussion on several nights. There were a lot of things that we all came out with a better understanding, or maybe even a different understanding of how we feel about certain things that are happening. So
yeah,
this has been a great experience. It really, truly has.
It absolutely has. And there's not one of us that's a lawyer or gone to school to be a constitutionalist. Every single one of us has a different background, and we've gotten to know that over the course of the last year. And it's been really fun to kind of come together. And most of us share the common ground of being primarily a constitutionalist. I can't talk tonight, but it doesn't matter. We've learned so much. And, Jim and Renee, especially Jim, I thank you so much for putting in the effort to help us learn and grow in that knowledge in the last year.
Yeah, but in fairness, I wouldn't have put the effort in if you guys weren't showing up every week. You know what I mean? Had this thing dropped off to 2 or 3 people, I probably would have just bailed out of it. So it's all of us. It's not just me. It's not just Renee. Everybody's showing up here. And we tried to open it up to liberals. I want that noted. We did try to bring the left in here. They wanted nothing to do with it. And the one that did come here ended up getting smoked out. So
Yeah, the train
Fully
wreck.
noted.
That was
yeah.
definitely a train wreck.
We did try. We tried, but they just, unfortunately, the Constitution is a right wing thing now. If you're studying the Constitution, you're an extremist. That's the way the media has it painted, and that's the way that the left believes it. So it's tough to get them to come in here. But no, man, I had a great time. I really did. And I learned a lot. I learned just as much as you guys did. I didn't know nearly as much as I thought I did going into this, right? I said when we were going into this, everybody knows a little bit about the first, everybody knows the second. You know, I knew the fourth because of work, but I'll tell you what, I didn't know anything about Article 1, really. I mean, Article 2, Article 3. I learned a lot with you guys. I
Honestly,
appreciate
something
it.
like this really should be I think it almost should be a requirement for like seniors in high school before they get out in the real world.
Well, you know, I would love to see you guys start your own, get your own groups, you know, get your own circle of friends that didn't get in on this one. This is how it starts, man. This isn't where it ends. We need people to get excited about this and go and do it themselves and start getting your circle of friends in on this, you know? So I got my circle of friends here. Now you get your circle of friends, they get their circle of friends, and they get their circle of friends. And before you know it, this is a movement, man. And if you remember, I started this thing after I was listening to the Constitution study. If you're listening to podcasts after you listen to ours, don't go listen to it instead of ours. Listen to ours first, and then you can go listen to the Constitution study. But he does a great job. I don't agree with everything he says. Sometimes he gets a little too far right for me. And sometimes I think he's flat out wrong with what he says, but just like, I'm sure you guys think I'm wrong about some things. But it's great. And he really opens your eyes to this thing. And he's the one that gave me the idea for this. So it's worth the listen. And the website's great. There's a lot of resources there on the website. So, all right. Well, I hate to do it.
Time for the post.
Yeah, man. I hate to end this one because now, it's kind of like once we end it, it's over, right?
You're gonna end it with a song?
We should end it with the song. We should end it, Renee.
Will the post link be in the Facebook thing?
Jeff, what's that?
Will the post link be in the Facebook?
Yeah, Renee will go there and she'll put a link up for the post. And then you just click on it, you get right back in. We like to separate the two so we have two completely separate rooms. So
We don't want the other one recorded.
And the other one is not recorded.
The other one is not recorded.
Right. So
People speak a little more freely.
It's like Vegas. What happens in that room stays in that room.
For real.
Yeah.
I'm just letting you guys know that I just pulled up the cookies, so I'm going to be sitting at the bar having a bourbon, listening to the next post discussion.
All right, fair enough. I should come up there with you. We'll do the post from the bar.
I'm here.
We should actually
walking in.
We should have done the post. You know what? That's what we'll do, Rick. Meet me up at I think you know where my studio is. Meet me up there and we'll have bourbon on the 21st.
You got it.
Yeah, we'll do it from there.
Let me see if I'm working here. I can't go in the bar because the music's on. 21st B shift. Yeah, I could do it.
All right. Good deal. So Renee, yeah, man, you want to you got that song queued up?
I do have it queued up. I have to stop recording because
we'll
YouTube
stop
kicks us
recording
out.
so we
So
don't
let me
get a
stop
trademark
recording.
violation, copyright
Yep.
violation.
Yep.